tell you about Bert Roper. He was my dad.
Well, I've known him my entire life.
Bert Roper was one of the heroes of this community.
Well, he's a hard guy to define.
Oh, he was a fun guy.
Was a great man, great inspiration in learning a lot of different things and figuring out how to do things in different ways.
It was an interesting combination of dad and daughter that we had.
He was a very benevolent man. He gave to a lot of organizations, but first and foremost, he was an orange grower, a citrus man, and an inventor.
He did so many things and did them well. A phenomenal man who impacted not just a community but a couple of industries, including the citrus industry and agriculture in general.
He was born and raised in Winter Garden. The family had come here many, many, many years ago, and when I came as a visitor, I felt very welcome. Ellen Roper, Bert's mother, was a delightful lady, and she welcomed me with open arms, which I thought was wonderful. And Frank, Bert's father, was always fun to be around. And both of the parents of Bert, were very generous and very nice to me.
Winter Garden was one of the leaders in the state in citrus production. In fact, Winter Garden was considered the largest shipping point for citrus for a number of years in the early part of the 20th century. We had 2 rail lines that came through the center of town, and both of those rail lines had depots in downtown Winter Garden, and both of those depots were busy shipping citrus to the northern markets from this area. That shifted, emphasis shifted after World War II. Fresh fruit was not shipped as much as orange juice was, and orange juice concentrate was the industry to be in after the war.
Early on in Dad's career, when he came back after the war here in Central Florida, he had the idea of taking the newfangled product, which was concentrated orange juice, because they had to figure out a better way to ship orange juice to the military overseas. So they came up with a way of concentrating the juice, or taking most of the water out of it and making a juice that was easier to ship. Very expensive to ship water. Well, that was the end of the war, and it was a huge market. We had a lot of men coming back from service, and they wanted this product that they had while they were overseas. So Dad had the idea of taking the Winter Garden processing facility that we had here and putting a concentrate plant in.
Well, Mr. Keene, R.D. Keene, I told him I needed $500,000 to put in a concentrate plant.
Said you wanted to use $500,000 of our money to build this concentrate plant.
R.D. Keene said to him, "Young man,
Son, you don't have any idea what $500,000 is.
You don't know what $500,000 looks like."
Bert, you don't want to spend that kind of money. You don't have any idea what $500,000 is.
you have no idea what $500,000 looks like."
Dad said, "Yeah, and I told you in 90 days, we'll all know what it looks like."
No, I don't, Mr. Keene. I don't have any idea what it is, but I'll tell you in 90 days what it'll do.
You're right, I don't. But if you'll give me the money in 90 days, I can show you what it'll look like.
But in 90 days, I'll show you what I can do with it.
And that's what happened. They built the concentrate plant, brought in the taste evaporator, and 90 days later, they had an operating concentrate plant.
And in 90 days, he built an orange juice concentrate plant.
And in 90 days, we had built a plant and opened up running in March of 1950.
And that carried the industry here in the Winter Garden area for the next 30 or 40 years.
Well, I always think of my dad as an inventor and a scientist in a farmer's world. In the 50s, he worked on concentrate plant. In the 70s, he worked on Tree C, which was a different way to spray and to chemically treat the earth. The 80s, things were changing because of the freezes. And in the 90s, we went to organics, and then, you know, he was always coming up with something interesting and something different.
You know, I love that guy, and to see him involved in the development of this community and his enthusiasm and his ideas. As I said earlier, he'd wake up in the morning, he'd say, "I had an idea," and I would shiver and think, "Oh my goodness, what's going on now?" But it was always fun.
He was really an amazingly healthy, conscientious person with how he treated what he put into his body. And I think that's part of the legacy with the YMCA as well. He was really interested in good health and nutrition and exercise and all of the things that make a good, healthy mind and a healthy body.
When the YMCA came looking to create the Winter Garden YMCA, Bert was very comfortable gifting the money. He was probably a little less comfortable putting his name on the building. He thought, was curious what people would think of that. And the community convinced him it was the right thing to do, is put his name there, and it's been wonderful having it associated with the YMCA.
The YMCA was not something that we expected. That was a sort of a private gift, and they said, no, we're going to rename the Y. And that was not something that my father expected in the process of doing that gift, but it was something in the way that they wanted to do it, in honoring of leading the neighborhood and leading the community and trying to do something that's good for the community.
The Roper Y was something that I look at now, and it's sort of a surprise. I know Dad was very uncomfortable about the Y's naming the YMCA from West Orange to the Roper Y, but when they finally agreed that that was a nice legacy piece, it's something that you can be proud of.
I don't think he was looking for any personal recognition. He wanted to see it come to the community. He wanted to see it available for the children who couldn't afford to go to the Y themselves, but he didn't want the recognition. He wanted it there.
There are people who are self-promoters, and then there are doers. Bert Roper was a doer.
He asked a few people, and they told him that it was appropriate, not only appropriate, but necessary.
If you mention Bert Roper's name, the first thing that comes to mind is a bow tie and citrus.
Yes, the bow ties. Dad always wore a bow tie.
And then you just tuck it in and tie it. There you go. So if anyone asks you how to do a bow tie, that's how you tie a bow tie.
He did not like neckties. And so when he had to get dressed up for some reason, the bow tie was what he wore.
My favorite story about bow ties is that we would go to church on Sunday, which is probably the only time he wore a bow tie on a regular basis. And of course, with 4 kids in a car in the back seat, there might have been a few, some of these. But we'd get almost to the church, and Dad would start tying his bow tie. We're headed, because we went to church in the big Presbyterian church in downtown Orlando, and I don't think any of us felt like it was particularly safe to see him up there tying his bow tie, speeding along down the road on the way to church. But he had it worked out to a science as to how long it took, and he got that thing tied, and we always made it to church safely, but it was always part of the process. Wherever you went, he never tied the tie until he was almost where he was going. And that was always, we all lived, fortunately.
Well, it was a wonderful industry is what it was really like. You could drive through West Orange County and smell the orange blossoms this time of year, and it was absolutely spectacular. And it was a thriving industry that employed a lot of people. One of the things the industry needed was leaders in technology, and leaders in developing and moving the industry along, and leaders in taking care of the employees, and Bert Roper was very instrumental in that.
When he was at his prime, citrus was king. And that's why Orange County's Orange County and not Mosquito County.
He was a champion photographer. He was also a one-on-one person. He was very much, when he wanted to have a conversation with somebody, or if there was a group environment and he's found somebody interesting, he'd grab by the arm and he'd pull them off over to the side, and it'd be a one-on-one conversation. He was very well connected on one-on-one conversations, and I'm sure there's people in the audience tonight that will take a look at this and say, oh yeah, I remember going off in the corner with Bert and having some very interesting or impactful conversation, because he was very connected and very personable on a one-on-one basis. He could do groups very well as well, but on a one-on-one basis is just where he excelled.
I've been blessed to travel most of the world, and there's not too many places any better to be.
He was just an incredibly generous man in many, many ways. And he is terribly missed in this community.
I just want to reaffirm that he was a fantastic man. I loved him dearly. We had a wonderful life together. I miss him, but I am eternally grateful for the memories that I have and the children that are with me, both here in Winter Garden and also in Idaho and California. It's a great life, a great life.